Hi, everyone. This is Jeff Praissman with Interactive Brokers Podcast. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the podcast studio Scott Bauer, the CEO of Prosper Trading Academy. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Jeff, we're winding summer down, but all is good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, it's crazy to think that Labor Day's this weekend coming up. And it's always great to have you on our podcast as we talk about the markets, the past 5 days, the upcoming 5 days, and what's going on in the markets. And for our listeners, you can find more from Scott at prospertrading.com and on our website as well under education and podcasts. Scott, it's been, as usual, another crazy week in the markets. Last week, the S&P 500 rebounded strongly from its recent correction, gained over 2%. And was this primarily driven by the positive reaction to Powell's Jackson Hole speech on Friday? And what does this more dovish tone signal about the Fed's approach to rate cuts for the remainder of the year?
So it definitely was. There's no question about it. Now, we can see some shifts coming forward the rest of this week here with NVIDIA and PCE big inflation data. But for sure, that rally was all on that shift in the market and sentiment, really thinking, okay, rates are going to come down. I don't think anybody, though, should get ahead of themselves and say, okay, there's going to be one in September, maybe another in October, another in December, because we have so much data, especially between PCE and then next week we'll get another jobs report. So I think we have to remain a bit cautious about that, but the market definitely liked that shift out of Powell.
Yeah, and you mentioned NVIDIA, and that kind of leads me right into my next question. Once again, they showed a remarkable revenue increase. I think it was like over 120%. And yet it still initially sold off before recovering. Is this kind of signaling a shift in how the market values, like even the strongest performers in that AI space? And what do you think this suggests about the sustainability of the AI trade that we've been seeing for so long?
This is really going to set the landscape for AI. And I was just looking at a stat. I think over 35% of all the S&P companies are tied into AI. NVIDIA is certainly going to be huge, but they do have a pattern of having really good earnings, beating revenue, beating everything, and then trading off of that. And I think that's one of those kind of buy the rumor, sell the news type of events. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that out of NVIDIA, but for right now, unless they say something really awful about their guidance, I think you still have to believe in the AI trade.
Yeah, and our last podcast a few weeks ago, we talked about the retail stock earnings were coming up. I think we talked about Walmart and a few others. And Macy and Gap, they surged last week, despite even mixed earnings reports across the sector. Are investors becoming more optimistic about consumer spending heading into the holiday season, or was this merely a relief rally after the significant underperformance?
Yeah, I think investors are a little bit more positive. Consumers are a bit more positive. We've seen a lot of pessimism, a lot of hesitation, if you will. But between the last CPI, okay, which did not show runaway inflation, and then, of course, last week, what Powell had talked about in that shift there, I think the sentiment is better. You're seeing stocks that have been beaten down that are so tied to the retail landscape picking up a little bit here. And we may see that continuing after these next reports that we get.
Yeah, and this week brings that crucial price consumption expenditures inflation report, or they call it the PCE report. It's coming this Friday, which really is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge. We see a moderation in core PCE, and I know you touched on this a little bit earlier with one of the answers. How likely is it that they'll opt for a 50 basis point cut, or would they maybe just go back to 25? And how would markets react to either scenario?
To me, I don't think 50 is in the cards at all, even if there is a really positive PCE report, and even if the jobs report that we're going to get next week, even if that is a number that the market likes, I don't think 50 is in the cards at all. But what we could see is a big shift as to further rate cuts, whether it be the last quarter of the year or even going into first quarter of next year. So I think quarter is pretty much locked in. And for me, I think if they made a 50 basis point cut, that would show a little bit of maybe, okay, there's some concern out there.
And sadly, the summer is coming to an end with Labor Day approaching. And I know not real. I know September 22nd is like the kind of real summer, but as everyone thinks of summer and going back to school, Labor Day is the cutoff point, right? Should we expect lower trading volumes, which usually come up during this period to exacerbate market moves because of the lower volume? Everything's going to be a little bit more affected. And, which sectors might be the most, vulnerable to these outside moves on the lighter volume that we're kind of going to expect to happen?
So we typically do see lower volumes going into a long holiday weekend. But again, video report and then this critical inflation report Friday, I think we're going to be active until that report comes out. Now, come Friday afternoon, after the move has potentially been made, if there's a big move off of PCE, I think volumes drop off the table as the day progresses on Friday. This whole summer, Jeff, where people have expected, myself included, because history says that we would see lighter volumes, this whole summer has been pretty.
Yeah, and I agree. And I know we've discussed it in past podcasts. And my final question is going to be counterintuitive to what I just asked, because at the end of August also marks some portfolio rebalancing for a lot of institutional investors. So conversely, given the significant outperformance of technology versus other sectors this year, do you think we'll see any kind of notable rotation as managers adjust their allocations, or do you think it'll be the same game plan as it has been?
I think portfolio managers out there may have two scenarios. Number one, number two, and it's based off of what NVIDIA says. If NVIDIA comes in as expected and really no surprises, or even gives really good guidance, I don't think that we would see a shift, even though there's just a short window there. I don't think we would see much of a shift out of technology. However, if the opposite happens and NVIDIA is a poor reporter, gives really poor guidance, you may start to see a shift out of there.
Scott, this has been great as always. And again, for our listeners, you can find more from Scott at prospertrading.com or on our website with all our podcasts. Click on education, click on podcasts, also our usual sources, Amazon, Spotify, Apple Music, etc. Scott, until next time, thanks for stopping by and enjoy your Labor Day.
You as well. Thanks, Jeff.
The analysis in this material is provided for information only and is not and should not be construed as an offer to sell or the solicitation of an offer to buy any security. To the extent that this material discusses general market activity, industry, or sector trends, or other broad-based economic or political conditions, it should not be construed as research or investment advice. To the extent that it includes references to specific securities, commodities, currencies, or other instruments, those references do not constitute a recommendation by IBKR to buy, sell, or hold such investments. This material does not and is not intended to take into account the particular financial conditions, investment objectives, or requirements of individual customers. Before acting on this material, you should consider whether it is suitable for your particular circumstances and, as necessary, seek professional advice.